Now, Berkshire Eagle reporter Carrie Saldo is joined by Robert Rizzuto of the Republican and MassLive, Henry Epp of New England Public Radio, and George Forcier from the Greenfield Recorder. They're discussing some of the latest headline-making stories in the region and beyond in April's Reporters Roundtable.
Living in Franklin County, sometimes you forget that it is probably the most rural county in Massachusetts. But that fact was borne out when we looked at fire statistics from the state fire prevention services. Turns out that Franklin County is the only county in the state where heat is or heating appliances is the major source of structure fires.
Looks like 48% there?
Yeah, close to half of the fires in the county are the result of essentially wood stoves. Pretty much everywhere else, that number is a quarter or less. So, for example, in Berkshire County, the number I think is 24%. In Hampden County, it's 16%. Hampshire County, it's about a quarter. So, you know, the relationship is just totally flipped in Franklin.
And in the sense is that more people burn with either a pellet stove or wood heat in Franklin County because people are more apt to lose electricity there, and this is a more consistent way to heat the home, or why are more people using wood stoves?
A variety of reasons. The one about backup heat is certainly one. We get, when the power goes out, often it goes out for 2, 3, 4 days at a time. And so it's nice to have a source of heat that's not reliant on electricity.
There was a quote from Northfield Fire Chief Floyd Skip Dunnell, and he said, you know, the biggest issue we have in Franklin County, statewide and nationwide, is the attitude that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and Skip Dunnell knows because he's been a firefighter for over 4 decades. So he's seen his share. And I think he's right. And that's probably true of a lot of things. We think it's not going to happen to us.
Hopefully we've had our last taste of very cold weather. But Rob, the paper looked at a story in the middle of March. We had a huge snowstorm yet again. And unfortunately in Longmeadow, a fatal accident. And that led to a series from the newspaper looking into what happened at that railroad crossing and why perhaps someone's life was lost. What does the paper learn? There was a meeting in Longmeadow recently, right?
Yeah, so basically during Winter Storm Stella, Longmeadow DPW worker named Warren Cowles was clearing the streets as he normally would. He backed onto the railroad tracks at the Burney Road crossing in Longmeadow. At this crossing, there is no safety devices other than a stop sign, so you have no idea if a train's coming. Unfortunately, one was. An Amtrak train was northbound clearing the tracks. He backed onto the tracks with his DPW truck and was killed. It turns out you know, this happened, we questioned 2017, how can this happen? And was it the first? Turns out, unfortunately, it was not. There have been 7 collisions there that we know of, 5 fatalities, and at least 2 lawsuits that Amtrak has settled, one of which the town paid out money as well. It seems like...
Over what period of time?
Over the 20th century.
Okay.
Yeah, as far back as we dug, we went through federal records and state records. State records were not that easily attainable. It took Assistant Managing Editor Greg Solomon several hours digging through a warehouse in Eastern Mass to go through a lot of these documents. And then he spent about 9 hours over the course of 2 days digging through Longmeadow town meeting minutes. And we found out that there has been an ongoing, well, I guess you could say a sporadic effort over the past 20, 30 years.
But it turns out there aren't even gates at this crossing, and it was also marked closed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so all railroad crossings are subject to safety investigations and regulations. So this particular crossing was listed incorrectly as closed for the past 60 years, which means that federally there's no reviews, because closed means there's no cars passing over it, so obviously it's considered a very low safety risk. That was not correct. It turns out that on the state level, this particular crossing has been inspected. In the 90s, it was 93 and 94, there was a full state review. They determined everything's fine. This was, 3 years after fatality in 1990 occurred right at the same place. So we kind of looked at a statewide study of all railroad crossings. And according to data, this is actually the most dangerous railroad crossing in the entire state of Massachusetts.
Among about 3,000 rail crossings,
Yeah,
right?
which is pretty telling.
There's been some change in the near term, right, where it's now marked as an open crossing and some other changes.
Yeah, it's been corrected on the federal level as far as like what the paperwork says. We've asked enough tough questions, and really, we've yelled enough for the state to really step up and pay a little bit closer attention. I can just tell you, our first round of questions to the state, there was not a lot of response. We kind of really had to prod it out of them. There's a lot of punting. Everybody wants to say, oh, this is somebody else's area because it's railroads. Railroads is that kind of murky gray area that we cross into where it's easy for, one agency to say, oh, this is this agency. You got to talk to them. And after a couple days of the runaround, we really kind of crystallized who the actual players were. And we've, like I said, asked enough tough questions and yelled enough to where I think folks are paying attention.
But do you think this is the kind of thing where if the newspaper hadn't put all these resources towards looking at this one railroad crossing, where really the issue is that there's stop signs instead of an arm and some signals, that would anything have ever happened?
I don't believe so. Yeah. The way it's looked from us reviewing things over the past 40 years, even when there was a fatality, even when something tragic happened, people's longevity of memory is rather short. So, let's say it happens in winter, by spring there might be a little discussion, but by summer, memories fade and, priorities kind of shift. No, I don't think that without us staying on it and really, Greg Salmon just digging and spending the ridiculous amount of hours that he did to get to the answers that we have, that people would even still be talking about it to the same degree that they are.
So, Henry, you've been asking some questions in Southbridge, looking at the receivership of the school district there, meaning that the state in January of 2016 came in and said, you have a superintendent appointed by the state. What's happening with the district there?
So I went to Southbridge, and they've had this state-appointed receiver who came from Cambridge. She's been there since, I think, May of last year, so approaching a full year in Southbridge. So I was curious just to see how the district was sort of taking the takeover. They have a sort of a plan of action. They have a turnaround plan, is what they're calling it. The main goals being to improve student performance and results, and the way you see that is on standardized tests.
Because the district had been consistently underperforming in the eyes of the state. It wasn't like the state came in and said, okay, we pick you, we're in charge of you now.
There was a long, and there was state involvement in Southbridge going back to, I believe, 2004, sort of monitoring and that kind of thing. But it wasn't until last year that they finally said, we're taking you over. And one of the reasons was that there had been this incredible amount of turnover in the superintendent's office. There had been, I was told by the head of the teachers union there, something like 8 different people that were in the head of the district over the last 6 years.
A little bit too soon to tell in terms of numbers coming out of Southbridge, because this happened, started in January 2016. Mm-hmm. So we don't really have the test results yet to have a sense of whether receivership is effective there yet.
There's not a full school year's worth of results really to look at, but that will be coming in a few months.
And something that's impacting Western Mass as a whole is a proposed rate increase by Eversource, something that the Berkshire Eagle has been looking at. I took a look at it, as well as our business editor, Tony Dobrovolsky, has been doing some reporting on this. And there have been hearings not only in Western Massachusetts, but across the state. Eversource has proposed a $96 million rate increase and $50 million annually for 4 years after that, according to the Attorney General. This means about $11.64 on the average customer's bill in Western Mass, a little bit less in the East, $8.45. I attended a public hearing a few weeks ago about the issue, and people from both the business community and residential communities came out and really spoke out very loudly against this. Residential customers are saying there were over 10,000 shutoff notices in Western Massachusetts, meaning that people right now are having a hard time paying their bills. So if this rate increase were to be approved by the Department of Public Utilities, would be a real burden, additional burden on those people. And then industrial people came out, especially people who are electric intensive businesses such as Crane Paper or another paper mill in the Berkshires, said this will have a disproportionate impact on their industries because it will inhibit their abilities to grow if they're spending additional money to pay their electric bills. And while none of the industrial leaders who spoke up at the hearing said anything about closing immediately, you could definitely get the sense that there was the undertone that this is what they were telling the DPU, right? Like, this is going to be a burden that we will have to shoulder, as opposed to investing in our business, investing in new employees. And we did see in the Berkshires that in the mid-2000s, when the DPU did approve a rate increase, we did see a paper mill close in a few paper mills close in the southern part of the Berkshires. So clearly not unheard of. DPU will continue to hold these hearings, and then in June in Boston there will be another series of hearings. Some sense whether or not the rate increase is approved by the DPU will be known in November. And I should say, for Eversource's part, they say that they're asking for the rate increase because they're facing a $35.7 million operating deficit in the western part of the state and $60.2 million in the eastern part of the state.
Carrie, are they saying that fuel prices for generators is part of this problem?
You know, that's something that didn't come up at the hearing, so I'm not quite sure about that. But, people, when they spoke up, they said that they're concerned that there's a two-tier rate right now where if you're using less electricity, you're going to pay less for that first 600 kilowatts. And then if you use more than 600 kilowatts, you pay a separate rate increase, a separate rate. In the proposed increase, that would then be flat. So sort of New England thrift gets penalized there, right? Because if you are a solar provider or if you're a solar user or having some other sort of alternative energy source powering your home, or you're using LEDs, or you've gone through an energy audit, those residential customers were saying, here's another way that we're being penalized. So the issue will be continued to watch. And like I said, the DPU is supposed to make its decision in November. More stories out of the roundtable coming up, right, guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Terrific. Thanks for being here.